Let's see. Okay. Hey, it's live now. I just need to drop the link. Let's see. Let's see where the join link is. And at that, come on, where is it? Boy, it's been a while. It's been a while since I've done a hangout. So I'm also trying to figure out where the event link is. Duh. It's probably the hangout itself right at the very top. Let me just grab that and put that in there. So this take me a second. Go figure. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, if anyone wants to join, feel free to click on that. Save changes. Yeah, that should be going. Okay, so anyway, there I am. Just wanting to brew up some cooking spaghetti, and then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get some painting done, and I'm gonna be here for a while. So I thought that I'd just kind of make a video, make a long video, a recording video, kind of, the state of the union, the state of my community, the state of my thoughts. See who might find this, I don't know, intriguing, or who might just simply be desirous to join. Who knows? I think I'll use a smaller pot instead of that one. Got a big old pot here, and yeah, kind of been doing carbs instead of protein for my diet. Lots of spaghetti lately. I mean, I keep breaking my vegetarianism every now and again, but I, push the limit just a tad, just a little bit every now and again. Okay, so what do I need? Need to get the goodies over here. Yeah, so just the thought, like, going in my head, like, yes, let him go, let him elevate himself above his station. Well, I don't know. No, please, let him elevate himself above his station. He wants so badly to travel. He wants so badly to leave. He needs to go somewhere else other than just staying at home in his own town with his own thoughts in his own way. But dear, he should not. He could just go somewhere else. He could behave differently within his own landscape. He doesn't need change. He doesn't. Oh, hang on, someone might be at my door. Uh-oh. And I do have my roommate's home. So as I'm bladdling along, maybe I'll put this way, so that they don't get freaked, or don't want to get recorded if they don't want to get recorded. Hearing me do my blabble. I'll have to put the camera over here just in case. That's right. Ooh. So there we go. Change the angle a little bit. By the way, like I said, if you're in chat, I'm probably not going to be reading a lot of the chats. Maybe I should pull that up, though, just in case. Of course, how do I figure that out? Please. Where am I at here? Okay, my channel, my video. Where? Just open the video. Just open it. Okay, there we go. Live now. Let me open that. See if anyone's chatting in that outside box. Who knows? Okay, I'll just kind of let that sit there like that while I go on my merry way here. Maybe I can see it. Okay, anyway, so a day in the life. in the life of dospook. Yeah, so there's this idea that there's this idea, right, that oh, blessed namaste. There's this idea that keeps going through my head that there's these like fates talking to one another about whether or not, you know, I should be condemned from trying to elevate myself above my station, or whether or not I should be free to partake, and that some are condemning and throwing the, you know, like fear into my universe, like, no, don't. And that the weight of the world's right there, and I've got to deal with the weight of the world, you know? Like, okay, everything I do has some sort of interactive consequence, and how I influence other people shapes my world and their world. But then there's also this shock to the core, like, is that the legacy you want to leave on humanity, your footprint? And I'm already figuring, like, well, there's probably been worse legacies. But occasionally there's this damning, like, to the heart, like the dragon or the gods or somebody's like condemning me, right? Condemning me for my behavior. But then at other times, it's things are conducive and I'm freed, and I think of Dune, like Dune, like fear is the mind killer, right? In the face of all odds, against the Titan, the hero must, you know, scale his way through their own fear, through their own shock. But I tell you, when you get that fear of death in you, like you authentically think something's going to shred your being, you know, it, at least for me, it can echo kind of a you know, like knock me to my core, you know, like, anyway, so I have this dialogue that the fates are having a discourse about whether or not I should be allowed to advance in my station, you know, financially and literally and otherwise, financially, literally, and literarily, otherwise, to, you know, to bigger and better things. Anyway, I'm going to obviously be a long. If you guys are watching this, it's going to be a long show, I tell you. Might as well do kind of a cover-all rant. See what, who, if anybody wants to join in. Get the occasional crazy woman that, oh, hey, got it. Good. Recording. Just, yeah. You probably knew that. Anyway, occasionally you get the semi-crazy people that because I'm cooking spaghetti and they're not, think that I'm on a Mr. Rogers episode and that they can have spaghetti with me. Like, hey, everyone, let's have spaghetti together. Let's go on a little walk together, because they're watching Mr. Rogers cook spaghetti and have a walk. But I'm not saying that. But if you want to have spaghetti with me, I'll be having spaghetti here really soon. That's right. You're going to watch me gob it, or I'll put you on this old, like I found these old videotapes, VHS tapes, that my dad had in his basement until I got a hold of them. And I'm looking for this old video of a friend of mine from childhood and I, Dustin. And he's, when Tom Petty died, right, it reminded me of recording this video with my friend Dustin when we were kids, and he was singing in this kind of weird jocular way, free balling, instead of free falling. So he's kind of a funky. He was kind of always disjointed with some of his social movements. But man, gotta love the guy. Always appreciated Dustin. But yeah, instead of free falling, it was free balling. Commando. I'll show you. Let me show you guys what that's about. Kidding, but I did think, like, hey, I thought if I stuffed a banana down my pants in the face of all these like people's cries of sexual harassment, that I should be able to legally say, hey, do you want to see my penis? And in front of somebody, right? And then if they say yes or no, it should still be legal to unzip my pants and pull out a banana, like a regular banana, right? And say, hey, do you want a banana? Like I think that should be illegal without a bunch of like, like the of response should be kind of put to rest. Meaning too many. I think the idea, the sensation that there's something sexual that might pop up in a conversation in any capacity puts like the fear of God in some people, in some women. But I think that should be okay, right? Even the same, like showing a little kid, and maybe this is psychological harassment, right? But there was somebody that was showing like, hey Johnny, like some little 1-year-old or 1.5, 2-year-old kid, like, hey Johnny, here's a little stuffed animal of a bear, and then they squeeze the bear, and like the bear like has fangs, and then the kid's like, ah! I was just at my cousin's house, and she's got a new grandkid, and who's 1-year-old, and it's Halloween, or Halloween. They still have the decorations, and it's really afraid of this Medusa doll. So the mom just takes out the Medusa doll, puts it in front of the kid, and he freaks out. And I'm just thinking, like, is that a type of conditioning? Like, hey, there's horrors in the world. We're just going to start you out young and have these horrors, and then comedians want to have these horrors, and the Louis C.K. thing. I thought that was. I like that he came out the way that he came out in response to the whole thing. Like, hey, I always ask the women first if they wanted to see me jack up. And so he actually did pull out his pee-pee. Mixed emotions on that. Okay, so now I'm back down to 1 viewer from 3. Thank God. Thank God. The discontents of the world viewers. Okay, so it's spaghetti time. That's right, we'll be doing spaghetti. And not in this pot, but in this pot here for all the, since I'm the only viewer of my own video. Okay, so anyway, so public opinion on thing I think is still nuanced. Look at my new tattoos. You guys see those new tats? A cat, like I'm an underwater sea serpent, and I got new scales tats. Yeah, wow. Okay, as far as deformities, yep, foot still bad. Yep, hip still bad. Yep. I'm bad. I'm bad because I'm bad. You know it. Jam on it. No, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel a little awkward every now and again. About this and that. What we got going on here? Yeah, I got Facebook kind of running simultaneous. I think that was Facebook. Let me see what's up. Anyway, so yeah, this is just kind of a casual me babble. This is gonna be a babble. I shouldn't say that. Hey, just ignore me if you heard me say Mike's gonna babble. Dospook's babbling. Anyway, I've just had some really good, engaging um, conversations lately. Oh man, yeah, but that's the world's weird. Yeah, just recording a live event. Oh, yeah, you can cook it, pecan or not. Yeah, cooking some spaghetti, kind of doing my. I don't know, man. These carbs are getting to me, but that I was like too many days of chicken, so now it's back to carbs. Go back to some vegetarianism. Maybe too much deer antler. Oh, someone popped in the room.
Hey, buddy.
If you want to say it, you can. Hey, how you doing?
Well, what are you up to, man?
Oh, just kind of trying out some antler test.
Antler test? What?
Antler test. It's a supplement that is made from New Zealand red deer antlers, and I'm feeling kind of bad about it because I'm generally a vegetarian, you know. And so it was a weird ethical decision to get it. But the lady that sold it to me assured me that the animals were either completely dead before they ground their antlers, that they took them off of them and they were still alive. So no, she didn't do that. But anyway, how are you doing? And how are you doing? And who are you doing? How are you doing?
Unfortunately, I'm not doing anybody at the moment, but I'm doing good. I'm actually just trying to find a job. I've been out of work for a few months. You know, I was working for a company that was it's funny you brought up ethics, because I was working for a company that basically operates in a legal gray space, you know, and I kind of endured a lot of psychological torment as a result of my involvement with not only unethical behaviors, but the fact that I had to intellectualize my way out of it. You know what I mean? It was quite a illuminating experience. You know, I'll give you a quick example. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Today by Brad, he's a dude I used to work with a while back, and he just randomly texted me. He's like, "Oh, you want a job?" You know, and of course I'm gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I need a job." But I started doing some research, because the last company I worked for with this man at, they were basically doing some shady shit. And so I was always trying to hold myself up to the highest ethical standards based on what I knew. But once I figured out what the game was, you know, I can no longer play that game. And like today he texted me, he's like, "Oh, come over for an interview." And I was like, "Dude, I just looked up your company, bro. You got a negative review, dog." And he's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Bro, the review says you are lying to people." And you know what this motherfucker has the nerve to say to me, dospook?
What did he say?
He's like, "It sounds like you don't have dedication." I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about, bitch? I have way more dedication than you."
Oh.
So anyways, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm also smoking a joint to just like relax.
Oh, see. Well, that's good. Yeah, and it's weird that you bring up what you're bringing up, because I'm pairing a lot of people that are saying that the investments that I'm getting into are, you know, they're saying it's Ponzi. You better get out now. They're trying to tell me what I know isn't true. Or they're trying to move my goalposts a little bit away from my own practices, and then I do some weird internal sensation about the idea of. I'm kind of a fan of the Robert Kiyosaki. Like, okay, on this hand you got workers, and you can be a boss, right? Where you're engaged in the commodification of working for somebody or overseeing people work. And then on the other side, you start moving your money into assets, you know, where you're bringing in more money than you're putting out, and in investments, right? And he's like, you want to move to that side of the quadrant, right? To the asset and investment quadrant. And so I'm approaching these things, Bitcoin and so forth type of things in that way. Like, hey, let's start moving funds over there. Let's start compounding it, and then, God, it's crazy. It's crazy the shit that's going on. But it's got me nervous because it's new territory for me in most respects also. But it's like put a dime in, get a quarter out. Put a dime in, get a quarter out. Do that all day long. But anyway, so I got that going on in the background, and I'm trying to get people to take a look at it. Like, hey, take a look at these investment instruments.
Hey, can I say something really quick?
What's that?
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead, please.
I understand what you're saying. You're trying to get people to not limit their personal abilities to achieve things by saying, "Oh, there's this giant evil system that's oppressing everybody, so I'm just gonna be motionless."
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they're stuck. It's kind of like there's certain escape hatches to dogmatic paradigms that I even held about economy and money and other things. And there's new technologies that are coming about that are really, really fascinating. Anywhere from like virtual reality, as a new domain for like video games and interacting with the world, and then blockchain technology, like the new internet of money type of thing. It's like absolutely fascinating. It's like, hey, look, I'll show you what's going on over here. And you know
what one of the problems right now is people want to support what you're saying. Deep down, we all just want to do what we want to do. We want to maximize our capacity. We want to help other people. We want to be good to the world. That's what everybody wants. When there's a system that puts so many obstacles in people's paths that they are unable to achieve anything. They've already been grinded.
What's your answer on that? What's your response to your own question?
Well, my response is you clearly have to address the systemic problems that generate what we demonize as problematic behavior, which is a more accurate way of describing it would be that it's not an individual having aberrant actions. It's a system pressure that generates what's the word? I lost my train of thought.
Like, is the problem inside of the person's head, seeing it as an obstacle and not knowing how to get around it, or is the problem in the system is necessarily obstacle oriented, and so it needs to be?
It's a combination of both, and that's the problem. Like right. Proto Martyr has a song. They have a lot of really great music. You should check that band out if you haven't heard them yet, dude. You'll probably like them a lot if you like extremely intellectual lyrics with kind of just like garage rocky shit. It's very stimulating.
Proto what?
Proto Martyr.
Proto Martyr. Okay. Huh.
I don't even know how these guys are so goddamn brilliant, dude. Like, I've had like a billion epiphanies since I started listening to them. But anyways, back to your question, I completely agree that, it's the individuals who imagine obstacles. And, okay, now this is where the solution comes, is where the problem actually generates, which is the ironic part. Because the minute you try to tell somebody what to do, they immediately stop listening. So the only proper way to elevate other people's consciousnesses so that they are not stuck in this fear-based prison that they generate in their own mind, the only way is for us to have a calm disposition in our own behavior. And I know some people might be listening, if anyone's listening, and they'll be like, "You're not calm right now," whatever. I don't really give a fuck about those puritanical ideas. They're all dogma. It's all dogma.
I was going to jump in and say this because one of these systems that I'm in, well, they have kind of like Amazon has, where if you refer somebody to their company, they give you a kick down, right? An affiliate basically possibility. And so they think, oh, well, it's another sales organization, hence it's a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme, and they label it like that. And I'm like, okay, you're imposing that yourself, but that's fine because these are like trading companies. But anyway, my point is that one guy, he said, to match kind of what you were saying, he said, people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. Tell them to buy, like you said, it's a problem, right? You don't tell them to buy. You open something up, your disposition differently, and then they see it, and then if they like it, well, then maybe they'll just kind of back in and go, oh, fine, okay, I'd love to buy that, So,
You're wise.
But it's also more of a thing like, hey, look, if you do it, the fate's in order. If it's like gambling, if it works for you, great. Not that this is so much a gamble as an investment, but it's the idea of even a job. Like, hey, here's an opportunity, man. If you're okay with it, right? If you're okay with it and you get in it, then it's almost like, okay, the fact of your being allowed you to move into that. Now you start working with it. You start fettering it out. You start figuring it out. You start
exactly. You're absolutely right. And it goes back to the problem that people don't understand morality. Everybody wants to think of this individualized nonsense so that they can justify their exceptionalism and their bigotry. Well, I have news for these people. They're literally using linguistics to not only imprison themselves, but imprison others. Because it's like you said, the river just flows. If you put a rock in it, I mean, why would you even put a rock in it? It's like, I was talking to this guy last night. He calls himself Rogue Philosophy. And of course, he hides his face and he doesn't tell you how old he is. Like all of the people that you talk to of this caliber. What they do. Okay, I made a statement when I went into the chat, which was, it was another Proto-Martyr lyric, okay? It was, the howling waves of humans crashed upon the blockades, and I'm fucking it up right now because I'm in my intellectual mode. I'm not in my poetry mode, but
sing it, man.
Basically, it's the idea of a violent revolution versus a non-violent revolution. And it's kind of weird because the hyper individuals, let's call them that. The problem they have, like you correctly stated, is they lack the ability to just relax and go with the flow. They constantly have to judge. They constantly have to label. They constantly have to find and seek. And what's the answer? What's the answer? But the minute you stop judging, and not in the sense that you have to restrain yourself, but in the sense that you recognize the futility of it, you realize peace in that moment. And I think that's where you're having a problem in your communication, dospook. You're probably barking up some wrong trees. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you're throwing out pearls and you're getting, crushed into the mud, don't think there's something wrong with your message. But I appreciate you considering your communication method to enhance.
I thought you were saying man. Don't think there's something wrong with your kids. And I was like, well, I'm not on medication anymore. No, anyway, yeah, no, I'm hearing you and I agree with you. But I did want to stop and get your opinion about, because you mentioned go with the flow, then you mentioned individuals, then you mentioned hyper individuals, or hyper individualism, which, because some people will argue, they're the idea of the individual, and then other people will argue the idea that there is really no individual. We're in a stream of community.
See,
and then there's the
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No. You can interrupt. Go ahead. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing it out there, No.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
The punctuated individual would be like the drop that hits a rock and gets flung out of the river. And so it's like punctuatedly aware of itself as a cohesive internal, maybe in-skinned, embodied unit that gets to carry, what it knows from the river out of the river, and maybe it lands on the shore, maybe it falls back into the river, wherever the drop goes, so to speak. And so that's kind of my analogy. I was just wondering if you had like what your philosophy is of, we're in a public array of language and linguistics and knowledge sets, or whether or not you find, and that's got its own neurosis problems, or whether or not you think that, being an individual, or one that then, as the drop flying up, internalizes everything. When you said hyper individual, I didn't mean like I was assuming that you meant not like hyper like giddy hyper, but hyper like squaring the root of the individual such that all their arrows pointed inward, so that the Fight Club, you are the all-seeing, all-center moment of the universe.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. I guess the only thing I would add to that is that it is a realization that you are the river that liberates you from your own impositions on your flow.
Yes, thank you. That both unnerves me. I mean, it makes me feel like I need to get off my ass and quit eating a big fat gob of carbs.
No. See, that's the problem. See, don't turn yourself into a linguistic tyrant. You tyrannize yourself that way. All these imaginings of gluten this and this and that. It's all wind.
Well, I'm thinking more like like I kind of know how I want to collapse my being, like from a sphere into a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And that this kind of is the like the coefficient or the remaining space, the difference between the pyramid edge and the outside of the circle, or the circle.
I see what you're
So I'm like,
saying.
why am I not cutting my fat?
Well, I see a lot of
Uh,
wisdom in what you're saying, because basically what you're saying is that as you take in food, you realize, this is just the simplicity of life. I'm just a part of a bigger whole, right?
well, and I understand your point that this is also like, hey, relax. This is part of the flow. Don't mess yourself up by, getting locked into some ideal that's, a linguistic function where just eat the damn shit. You're there anyway.
Like there's a guy that is on YouTube that's way smarter than me. His I think his channel is called like Ruzirak or something like that.
Okay.
But whoa, you want to hear somebody that's smart? Yeah, that's the one to listen to, bro. Because he made this video. What was it? It was just recently too. But he made most of his videos are in Spanish or German, but he makes English videos too, which I'm so grateful that he takes the time to do that. He made a 36-minute video about the way, the Buddha, the Dharma, and
Right.
he explains it perfectly,
Hmm.
absolutely perfectly.
Well, I'm
Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that I'm reading this book that a friend translated, that he'd gone to China for a series of 7 years. Back and forth. He was there for like 5 months each year, and I didn't know he was doing this, but he mailed me a book he was translating, and the author has died. I think he was born in 1918, and basically he said, well, he's taking elements of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism, and from that he's extracting his own philosophy. And so now I'm reading this guy's translation, or I'm reading a translation of this guy's, trying to make coherence, ebbing and flowing amongst the Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a great subject because Western philosophy definitely has problems reconciling with Eastern theories of the mind. And Alan Wallace, Buddhist scholar, debated physicist Sean Carroll in a debate. And in my opinion, Alan Wallace completely destroys Sean Carroll in this debate. Sean Carroll looked uncomfortable. That's how bad these linguistic traps are. A PhD stumped by
Yeah,
the man who fucking meditates.
I saw Carol do. I watched a few of his things several months ago, probably almost 8, 9, almost maybe a year ago. But I saw one. He
I'm
was.
not saying he's stupid. Sean Carroll is not stupid. Please don't think
Oh
I'm
no,
saying that.
he's excellent. I think he's excellent. But to see, even that the difference between the analytic West and the East is different than the analytic West and the continental, European philosophies. But it is kind of a weird twist because I would assume Carroll was impressing the Europeans with his analytic approach. So if he met somebody that was highly skilled in thoughts with the Eastern notions, then I can see how they can comb over somebody. People affect other people, you know, and
Totally.
it doesn't matter the degree of their intelligence. And people do move. They're moved by they move their positions quite often, and I like to assume that I'm really take in things from other people. I was sitting next to this woman while I was getting my oil changed, and we were talking about ghost riding, like riding a car like a ghost, and in almost a pathologic way, where you just speed through traffic and seemingly you're untouchable. You becoming an untouchable, and she called it bubbling. Oh, I bubble myself through traffic. And I said, I just kind of internalize my center, and then it feels like everything's safe and everybody just kind of moves out of my way, and I can drive very quickly. Semper Fi, have, complete faith, kind of. And it was weird because we continued our discussion, and I said that I allowed negative spirits to move through me. And she says, why would you ever do that? Like and I said, well, I have a history of masochism. And she says, well, you should bubble yourself away from them, at least only bring in the good. Don't mix it up with the bad. And I said, well, when you let the negative move through you as well as the good, it kind of ceases its binary distinction. But it affects you anyway. And so anyway, that was kind of a spiritual
No,
dialogue.
no. Like, let me speak on that. What?
Yeah.
Oh my! Wow! Thank you. Oh man. So, oh, you're really smart, dude. I like talking to you. Um. Okay, so I kind of lost my train of thought. So can you just talk again?
Well, it's okay, man. I mean, I kind of skip traced from
Oh wait, I remember. I
what.
remember. I remember right now, dude.
Go ahead.
You said you allowed the negative energies to go through you. Yeah, that's the key, bro. If you lock the devil up, you turn yourself into this 50%, bigot. You have to see who the devil is in order to know him, and then you can. If you don't know what the bad is, you're going to stand from a position of bigotry and judgment. And you're going to say, well, I read these words in this book that said you're going to hell because this guy wrote it down with his pen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. One of my roommates really affected me 2 days ago because I told him that not only was I investing in these Bitcoin compounding companies, but that he knows that I market them. And he came at me with the idea of, well, we talked about the base core of humans, like, hey, underneath everybody is a human. From there, here are these problems. And he said he thought that marketing itself was key to controls, and that controls were a problem. And I thought that I like in one manner, I kind of found myself agreeing and disagreeing because I moved through like paradoxical hypocrisies on my sliding scale of hypocrisies in contradiction, actually, paraconsistent logics. So anyway, I as far as people affecting me, and I think you just walked in or out, and was I went to bed and I woke up at midnight 30, and I had this. It just felt like I had a thunderbolt move through my soul of trying to tell me that what I was getting involved in, like that I don't want to be the richest guy in some grave, you know, like there's no point in it, and it's called cryptocurrency. So for all associative reasons, you know, cryptography and living in a crypt become associated. And so there was just this damning effect that influenced me, and it dampened my goals. And that's when I thought to myself, I thought this was like the fates or God or somebody trying to, like William Burroughs also said, don't let the powers that be see you try to elevate yourself beyond your station, right? You'll just get into fear, or it'll like they'll condemn you more. I can't actually remember his follow up, but then I was thinking of the movie Dune, and the you know, the whole fear is the mind killer, and I thought like, okay, it totally like smashed me out of my center, which I think good dialogues do, right? They decenter you, they squish you, they squish your little water pellet of being in mind. They find any remaining rebuilt egos and they squash them out. And so my thoughts were, you know, I kind of had to re make myself buoyant again. I needed to kind of inhale, reapproach, get rid of the fear, try to then it really made me wonder whether or not I was doing evil acts by entangling anyone into, like, entangling healthy, you know, communist socialists, hey, I don't want to work for the man sort of thing that I came out of at one point. I don't know if I wanted to entangle them into something that appeared as a marketing thing or appeared that they shouldn't be working a day, right? Because a lot of people have an ethic of, you know, we're in a closed economic system, and so if I am, you know, if I take disability, then I'm taking funds from the taxpayer, and then other people, oh, no, you already have a bond on you since you were born of $1 million that the government holds, and then if you need it in the form of Social Security or disability, they release it to you in increments. And then the whole idea that obstacles in life are things like you're in a puzzle, you're in a matrix, and it is kind of like in a video game, and it's your job to solve the puzzle. And it means that there's some deficits and some pains and some issues and some workaround and some relief and some reiterative intersections. But I don't know, that's where I'm at. Yeah, that's just a lot of me running over it. But it made me kind of like it took me a while to feel whether or not I was like going a little bit, I don't know. In one way, the sensation was that I was working for the devil if I was working for an investment where you could put in a dime and get out a quarter. Put in a dime, get out a quarter, right? It's something like felt torturously like this is a problem. And then I thought, I met this guy, I went to see High Anxiety by Mel Brooks, and there was this English dude that I was talking to where we were both getting coffee, and I mentioned blockchain and the Bitcoin, and he says, I said, have you heard about it? He said, I work for IBM. He says, I know more, so much, you know, that phrase, like, I know too much to be dangerous. And then I just found out today that the corporation that I'm working for they're the first ICO, meaning internet coin offering on the blockchain, to have a relationship, a contract relationship with IBM to let Watson crack Bitcoin on the blockchain, right? They have a monopoly on this that's contracted. And I'm like, this is so huge. Like, the world is changing in stupendous ways really quickly, and it's coming up from below, and people don't know about it. But I'm like, I think it's okay then for me to let people that I care about in on this little skinny, right? Because if this is something that people on the inside know about, then, and the blockchain is distributed, universal, transparent cartographies, even though Monero tries to keep re-encrypting it, I'm thinking, hey, share the wealth. I don't feel so unethical. Anyway, that's where my head is today. Far from it. In part. But
impressive.
It's odd. I'm supposed to be working on this painting. And I can't get myself to it, but I thought I'm going to eat first. Someone else almost popped into the room.
Yeah, I just got a call too.
Yeah.
This might be somebody trying to offer me a job because I put in a bunch of applications today.
Well, you had to shoot me a link. I'll give you the inside scoop give you my Facebook team page and whatnot. If when we're all done, you can go to my dospook channel and email me something. I'll link you to what it is I'm talking about. Well, actually, on my dospook,
yes, sir.
The most recent video kind of links you to the blog. So the one before this, the video before this, but the company does have a new rule where you're not supposed to film your back office, and I was filming my back office, so I thought, because I didn't know about the rule beforehand, they'll let it slide. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, you can check it out. It's kind of interesting stuff, I think. So let me ask you though, what's your what kind of jobs is it you're doing?
Before?
Yeah, I mean, what's your angle?
Well, I've been in sales shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sales shit anymore because I don't like manipulating people with words. Otherwise wouldn't do, or things that aren't necessary or beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I live in a working class area among minorities. I want to live amongst them and work amongst them. Just a simple job. I want to work at a grocery store.
Yeah, work with the public. So you do have the ethic and a good ethic of, work with the public. You're not trying to bullshit anyone. You're helping them out. You work a solid, honest day. You earn an honest buck.
Yep. I also do something that I don't know if it's helping anybody, but I call it IRL shit posting. Walk around and I tell people what the fuck is going on, and I yell shit from my car, and I do all kinds of crazy shit, dude. And I don't know if people are listening in ways that they can fucking understand. I'm not speaking to these minorities. And please, when I say that, I hope nobody is offended by that statement, because I started crying because I felt like I was gonna offend somebody. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, bro.
It's hard. It's hard to not. People get self-conscious about offending people. Of course, you don't want to pool or anything. At the same time, you don't want to feel like, your advice to me about the eating. My advice to you is, don't feel so much like you're walking on eggshells. You're conscious of it. And I think it's incumbent upon the listener to realize that you're conscious about it. But there is a lot of pushback going on with, the feminine goddess type of movement that's really pushing back on men, a lot of racial pushback on white men, a lot of general historical type, like we're watching the ebb and flow of these cases happen right now. So it does play a role on how people act, and so I understand you're wanting to qualify your words.
Cool, man. One thing I noticed, that if people people don't get this because whenever people talk about it, their words are too big. Told me this. She's like, you can't always use big words because people feel stupid.
What's up?
And I was like,
sorry, I was going to cut you off
and I
because
was like, fuck.
I have this woman that I rarely talk to, but every now and again, and she's just fun. But I post some pretty big word posts, and she wrote me. She said, "Your big words scare me."
Yep.
And that's what she said.
I know. Well, there's a time and place. You know what I'm saying? Like,
mm-hmm.
But the way that I would put it in common speak is that whenever you're fucking walking around on the motherfucking streets and you're like just minding your own fucking business, you fucking treats you with motherfucking respect. And if you don't understand that, you haven't been on these fucking streets.
Yeah. Well, and but I mean the streets. I was talking about machismo and catcalling because I said, I think that the whole history of that.
No, these motherfuckers get called out all the fucking time, bro.
Oh,
one motherfucker at a 7-Eleven, I was getting beer. This motherfucker, you know what he said? He said, "You're loco. You're loco." And I complained the next day to his because that's not right. You can't go running around fucking just because I'm white and I know big words because I come from a privileged background. You can't bigotize me for that. Like today I was at a staffing company and I noticed that one of the employees there put off by boisterousness, open communication. It frightened her because was not able to do that in her life yet. So another person that's free, it just scares her because she's still in that fear consciousness, like,
yeah,
because I can't get things somehow. But it's like when you just fucking like give up and just chill, things just start coming to you. It's just fucking weird.
Yeah. No, you get it. Well, and people go through it. They're you live in a different region, I assume. I was just thinking like, hey, I wonder if you're in Chicago or something. But I figured, like it takes people some time to, themselves and then learn to live and then reapproach themselves and do it a few times and several times and in a lot of ways in order to finally relax and take the world and engage the world and then find their place in the world and then slide into it. And for some people it's a lot longer than others, and some people feel really really suppressed, and sometimes it's just basic naivety. And then there's like mutable signs, like like in the zodiac, you got the mutable ones that are more changeable, and the cardinal ones which are more strict and they're more architectured and less changeable. And it's different personality types, people doing different things. But I hear you also, like if they don't have the means to step out of their way, you might find a way to negotiate to kind of get them out of their shell, kind of like letting a snail kind of come out of its shell, or some street, like if they're in a shell, you might be able to find a way to give them with linguistics or words some means to come out, charm them some way or something. I don't know. It's just an idea, but
no, you're absolutely correct, sir. Like it was little things throughout my life, like things that my mom did, or things that my aunt did, or things that all the people that cared for me, and then over the years, for I don't even know how the process happens. Like I can't explain it in a. I guess I can explain it, but I don't know if people usually get upset with my explanation for some reason. Do you have that experience?
Yeah, but I can either work around or walk away from. I mean, I feel like I got a pretty good handle on a lot of situations. Plus, I'm a pretty big guy, which took me a while to realize just that my mere size kind of, in social situations functions as a type, kind of like
Hey,
there's.
it's funny you say that because I'm only 5'8" and I'm scrawny as shit. And I literally my best friend in high school was like a dude that was like 6'2", and he was really fucking smart. I loved hanging out with I wish I could hang out with him again, actually. But he he basically protected me. Like this one time, somebody literally put me inside of a locker and they closed it, and I was like, And the only reason I was able to escape was because Tim came in with the bat and he protected me.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I had a girlfriend in college. She's so fucking smart, dude. Now she's a lawyer right now, bro. And she liked me. It's like, what? And then she had a painting on her wall that said Grace. And it took me a long time to figure that out, bro.
Well, I mean, dude, you got your likable attributes. I'm sure you have, yeah, you might get nervous about what's gone and what's lost, and some things of the past you can reconcile, and it's good that you're emotive about your relationships of events that are honorable that really touched you, like your friend in the locker and so forth. And so, but it's as far as stuff that's in the past, that's a tough one. I mean, you'll choose your own adventure on whether or not you try to, whether or not you sit in the seat of the guy that lost the girl that is now a lawyer that liked you, or there might be.
No, that's a very good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it, because even to hold on to relics of the past is another form of blocking your emotion.
Yeah, it is, and yet you can't. You're working with your past, meaning you don't. Well, it's arguable to say you can work with somebody else's past, but I mean, for the most part, you're working with what you know and understand, and you're working with your history, your own experience. And so
Yeah.
people, and there's no one that gets out of the life, that lives to adulthood that doesn't stumble across some recollection that they think that they could have done otherwise, or that they could have done better, or the circumstances weren't,
So basically everybody has a quote unquote fucked up past. We all have that in common.
Well, you can have, like, some people live really gracious lives, and I don't think that they sum up their past necessarily as fucked up, especially if they feel like they're turning out really well. But I think more and more per capita worldwide, especially in this zeitgeist, this era now, not eon but era, I think you're going to find more discontented people struggling, which I think is more of the history of humanity, than maybe other people, like the people that get through that are just golden and sweet, and don't have a lot of resentment. They're few and far between. That's all I'm saying. Fewer and far between. Far between. I better start using the word betweener.
Betweener.
betweener. It sounds too much like wiener, betweener, and so the women would take it sexual. So we better not use betweener.
No, that's good though. You actually want to construct language that does that to a certain extent because it will shake them out of their bigotry.
Well, but I realize that I sometimes run a subtext, and I know that even if people aren't picking up on it, sometimes they're picking up on it. Like I referred to like this woman who I like. I think I purposely use like I went and got a new charge cable for my computer, and it was a firmer cable. And so I remember, telling her this, but realizing I didn't actually have to go into the detail as to why I was getting this new charger. But I mentioned that it was because it was a firmer cable. And I just thought just the idea of firmer cable in whatever
I see what you're saying.
It all kind of comes out, and then, I don't know, weird.
Well, I agree. I think feminists have a good point in the arguments they make. I'm not saying we need to throw out feminism. Please, that's not. Feminism is saving mankind. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, so one of the jokes that I say women that grow their hair below the length of their ear are just virtue signaling the matriarchy.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Because it's more like, hey, just push it to the limit and say, hey, kind of the whole red pill MGTOW Mingo in their own way. It's almost like God, they're if you look at kind of like Robert Crumb cartoons, like the downtrodden man and the big apish woman beating the shit out of him. Like there's a lot of truth that comes from certain people's histories of women really beating the shit out of the men and controlling the men. And behind every great man is a woman. No, behind every great man is a controlling flock of communal women that are like spiders that are locking down the matriarchy upon humanity. And now the internet's exposing them, but they're making it seem like it's like, yeah, you go run for president, buddy, or you won't get any tonight.
It's like, wait, wasn't the matriarchy already running everything like before this language bullshit came in? Oh, wait, that's right. They were. So you motherfuckers were just imagining you had power. Woo! Good job.
It's a funny thing to think, and as far as where people position themselves in the whole array, like the whole idea of intersectionality, that's an array. It's multiple arrays of different things. So why not backstep it and mirror it or invert it and say, yeah, well, hey, we are in a matriarchy, and just start with that premise and then see how they negotiate trying to get someone to fit into that. Like, no, you must agree that it is the case. There's too much evidence that white straight men have controlled humanity and for ill-gotten gain, and these are the effects. And
that's right. You're right.
Well, yeah, it's weird because I argue that I'm apositional. Like I'm not positional, meaning that I'm migratory on my positions, and that I settle, but I'm settling like a butterfly lands on something. It's not that I can't slip to something else, and that when I do land in the same spot again, it's in a different orientation. But that's just me.
So is it the acknowledgement that the fact of settling is to cause something to be something it's not, or try to give it some sort of a name which causes it to become locked into a linguistic, relativistic, identity-based, object-oriented language system that is meant to simply give things value and ascribe other things without value, when the arguments are not actually based on any kind of merit? Because once you actually open your mind and you see what the fuck is going on this planet, without all these blinders on, it's so obvious that the correct mode of being is just to chill the fuck out. Dude, because
I like your
honestly, dude, like I'm not even fucking joking, okay? I'll give examples right now, just in case there's any like MRAs listening, which they obviously wouldn't even make it this far in the conversation. But please, that's another bigotry of mine.
Who knows?
I need to be apositional when it comes to thinking the MRAs are not transitory in their ability to not be locked into positionality.
Well, I wasn't saying that to defame MGTOW or MRAs. I'm not here to bloviate
that's the right way to put it.
Feminism's ass, and I'm not here to justify one move. Meaning, to me, they're occurrences, and they're other nodes of individuals that have these perceptions, and so it's the idea that if instead of talking, you said object-oriented language, but object would be like shared, communal, like referential, sign signified object, and I, meaning that we can agree upon, agree upon that A equals A, that 1 + 1 equals 2, you're conditioned to it, and then from there you build your rational structure up. But if you displace it and say, well, truth comes from all of these individual nodes, and that they have their own truths, unless they are apositional within themselves and in transit, so to speak, then their engagement with the external world is necessarily going to be like a type of projection or intersection. That's how I think about it, at least. And so, meaning I know, well, it depends on your agenda and your take, your belief. William S. Burroughs said we live in a matriarchy, right? But I mean, he also is kind of fucked up, and I don't subscribe to it. Like, generally, the river will bring me a river, to use river in a different manner, will bring me to a general pool of agreement with like the general community. But like with the Las Vegas shooter, right? Like right when I heard about it, I thought, okay, I'm not even going to listen to anything on this until there's a consensus truth on who and what happened, and then to see what the tangential truths are. And then I just barely yesterday heard somebody say that there was a helicopter that took off, and then there was recordings of a helicopter that was shooting at the crowd also. It's from Mandalay Bay, the airport, or real close to it. And I said, I don't live in Nevada. And I said, it's interesting that we're even hearing about it now, because my understanding was that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Thanks for listening. Too soon? Too lagged out?
Genius.
I don't know. It's a workaround, but even postmodernists that I agree with, I think they're missing a lot of the point. And I think that a lot of structuralists are also missing certain elements. I think Jordan B. Peterson he had a couple nuggets, and the rest of them is somewhat of a diatribe. Stefan Molyneux, I think, is himself in intellectual IQ. The root philosophy is IQ oriented, for his distinctions among everything. Like, if you bring him down now, it's no longer about anarchism. He's less of an anarchist now than he ever was. He's more of a statist and a historical. He moved his position, and then the root is everything that has to do with IQ differences, so he can generate any difference that he wants to generate based on any IQ stat, and then from there, plus he keeps reiterating what the truth is, so he propagandizes the reiteration of the term truth, and then people get caught into his fishnet. Very interestingly enough, and I've seen a few good, there's some Thaddeus, somebody or another just debated him or had a conversation with him. And that's who I thought, well, we got this postmodernist, he's really interesting. And I thought, boy, I wouldn't mind getting on his show, but I got my own shit to do. But anyway, those are my kind of thought. I mean, you could bring it like Joe Rogan. I think Joe Rogan's really, really pretty loose and chill around the edges. He's pretty open to most things. I think he gets a little sticky in certain areas, but for the most part, he's kind of a chill the fuck out sort of guy. A little bit of pushback. You can see where people's limits are when the discussion carries on. The more there's inner discussion, the more you get to know someone, the more you have to accept differences and allocate the differences and negotiate them, and then continue on and hope that they can do that with you also. I think that's like key for a good relationship. But I don't know. I'm a little over the map. Well, so where are you at, man? What city are you in?
Santa Ana, California.
Oh, now and that's of Santa Cruz.
I don't know.
You don't know where it is to Santa Cruz? Santa Ana. I don't know where. I know it. I just
Yeah.
don't know. It is. Oh, okay. Well,
No, I was agreeing with you when you said Santa Ana.
oh. Hmm. Anyway, I really liked. I cruised over. I'm in Utah. I cruised over through Reno and into San Francisco, and then I went down to Santa Cruz after I went to Willits. Oh my God, that was crazy. Don't even want to get started with that town. But yeah, that was my first time going to Northern California. It was a mythic adventure.
Cool.
Since you're in California, man, I know you know the general consensus and cohesion out there is very, very, women's empowerment, no bullshit. We're taking down
Yep,
the
that's
man.
right. If like literally, dude, like I went into the fucking weed shop last night, bro, and this guy's like, he's like looks like he's all like fucking scared and shit. I'm always trying to be nice to this guy, but last night I was fucking drunk, dude. All right, and I went in to get a joint. This dude like, I was like, what's your problem, bro? And he's like, you're a douchebag, douchebag. And then I turned my back on him, and he's like, can I get you some water? And then the the girl that works there, Courtney, she's like, thank you, dude, and she high fived me. Yeah,
Oh,
these motherfuckers don't get away with this shit out here, bro.
mm,
Shit. And you know what the thing is? You know how you were talking about how, like, what is it that creates obstacles in people's paths? And of course, we all know it's their own brains, it's their own beliefs about reality.
mhm.
Um, but how is it so convincing to these people that they're oppressed? It's because they actually are oppressed through actual oppression, value of empathy. Because if you totally disconnect from everybody else, pretty much shit out of luck. But if you just fucking connect with everybody around you, the world just like kind of like carries you around. Like, okay, here you go. Oh, here's a job,
Yeah.
girlfriend. Oh, okay, yeah, here you go. It's like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that it was this easy. Like, I just had to literally just fucking stop fighting and just fucking go with the flow, you know? But I think so. So, anyways, I guess what I want to say is a couple things about that is there's two magnitudes. There's two orders of magnitude that create consciousness in an individual, I guess you would say. Order of magnitude where they go through a little bit of, it's like, flat tire, doesn't mean anything. Oh, I've fucking stubbed my toe, blister on my foot. Oh, whatever. These are common everyday problems that everybody fucking shares. And chances are there's somebody around you that has a way fucking worse problem than you. So, but then there's a second order of magnitude of change where you actually go through a very traumatizing experience,
Yeah.
repeated traumatization. And oh, I'm gonna cry, bro.
It's okay. You've
What?
already done it once.
What?
Have at it.
Yeah. What happens is the person just gets really scared, and then they look around and they feel like everybody's gonna hurt them, people around don't hurt them and the people are nice to them, then they can be nice too.
Yeah, it's and well, and don't. Yeah, you're right. If they're nice to you, then you can be nice to them. But you go.
It boils down to game theory. Okay, the only relevant exchange method between humans is the game theory of mutual interdependence. That's where you give, it's grace. You sum it up in one word: grace. Give peace a chance. You see somebody suffering, you don't kick them. You you say, "Hey, how can I help you?" And they say, "Oh, can I have a Coke?" And you say, "Yeah, do you like a bottle or do you like a can?"
Because you ain't getting neither.
Say, "I like a bottle."
No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Just trying to speak to these people in a way that makes them wake out of their fucking delusions. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyways, I've been talking too much and it's probably
No.
probably weighing heavy on you.
No, I think you're one of the very first people that I've ever spoken to mention game theory. And so just the mere fact that you did that, you already just like, boom, dude, you're already, the way you comb through stuff. I mean, you're a lawyer lady friend. Yeah. I mean, you're a bright guy. You're aware of things. You're tapped in. You have your own set of intelligence and you're emotive. And I do agree with you in general that there is a general hope for to other people in humanity. I kind of, and I do agree with you about the tragic, like certain people scale through tragedies, other people reiterate tragedies in their minds. Some people have one huge punctuated tragedy.
Right.
Some people, they're skating through life and they're not hitting a tragedy, right? They're smooth, cool, and they have some bumps and some hiccups, but if they did have it, you wouldn't know it because they wouldn't tell you about it because maybe their way they deal with their whatever they've gone through is to not speak about it. They've learned like, hey, don't invoke or bring that spirit up again, so to speak, because it doesn't serve them. But it's I don't know. It is
right.
It is weird.
You're right.
Weird, but and so I don't. See, now I lost my train of thought. I was trying to think about something that you had mentioned before. Well, I'll just have to wait until it hits me. I guess.
Okay, well, look, game theory. They tested all of these exchange methods out. They've already the problem is already solved. Like the only thing that is preventing it is people who want to act like, oh, yeah, these insanely motherfucking smart people didn't already solve these fucking problems. They fucking did. So let's just fix the goddamn economy already. Straight up.
Hey,
like
right.
We know what works. And we know what works and what doesn't.
Well, and so, but then I think of Star Trek, like with Captain Picard, and he brings someone that like in a deep freeze into the future, and they're like, "Hey, where do we buy a drink around here?" And they're like, "Computer, get him a drink or order your drink." Da da da. Like, hey, the other like trying to clean up. Oh no, the ship will clean itself up. The computer will clean it up. The computer will replicate your food. The computer, right? And so there's this notion that economy is not related still in some fashion to laborious activities of man and machine and animal and so forth, right? And but we're still not there yet, and yet there's this whole idea of capital exchange. That's what I meant by like the people that are hopeful for the Star Trek future, because the woman from the past, he says, well, the economy of the 21st century is much different than it is now, meaning there's no need for money. We're not doing this for money. We're doing it for.
Yes, I completely agree. I totally agree with that, because when you look at Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, you see that morality is kind of evolving in a way. People look at the dollar bill and it says ordo ab chao. and they're like, oh my God, somebody's going to kill me. No,
Hmm.
that means smart people are fucking trying to raise your consciousness, bitch.
Well, and that's why I thought the whole Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, decentralization, moving the power structures, democratizing the power structures to the point where somebody even said, there was six. They said this when there were 600 coins. Now there's over 1,000 coins, and they said, by the year 2020, elementary school kids will develop their own coins. He says this has happened through humanity. First, kids were trading like wooden nickels, then they were trading baseball cards, then they were trading Pokemons, and then they were
You're
trading.
right.
It's a matter
Bitcoin
of
is the way out.
thing, So it's
Bitcoin is
who
the way
knows
to
where.
break the matrix.
Well, I think it is,
But
but then it's also not without its problems because there's a huge volatility. And my biggest fear, the thing that feels evil about engaging it, is that you're processing the blockchain technology, which if it doesn't include grandma on welfare that could be kicked out in the streets,
yeah,
then
clearly.
there's a problem, right? But there's always been a problem in humanity, and then so the way we are as value-oriented communal beasts that are still holding on to capital exchange prior to the advent or the faith that, hey, God will provide, will provide, or the VR virtual reality will provide, or whatever will provide, our desires beyond belief. Until that moment, just tragedy after tragedy, human sufferings. It's like
Yeah.
to me,
And that's because we're collectively hallucinating separation that isn't real.
Well, and see, and that's the interesting thing too, because how do you define, like, because one woman, I went through these community group things, and I called them dynamic community courses.
I'll tell you, I can explain that thought. I can elaborate on it. So basically, the way it works is because morality has a ripple effect. Like if you hug a homeless guy and somebody driving his car sees it, 3 people's lives that have just gotten better, they might go do the same thing for somebody else, and then boom, 10, boom, 100. When I say morality is evolving, and we're there's just not going to be space for immorality anymore. We're not going to allow space for it. We're already attacking the ivory towers everywhere they stand. All these bigots that from their illusionary high places.
Well, one thing, what I was going to mention was the idea of oneness, a one morality, a universal morality, a universal code of conduct. I think it's problematic still, meaning, and perhaps you'd say, well, that's just me not resolving it. But I think that if unless you move into a complete type of psychopathy, you must, well, I'll illustrate it by saying these group dynamics classes tried to get you into the frame of oneness. You are one, like get you into
Right.
your position is as a oneness of consciousness in the universe. But then that can bring you into solipsistic realms where you could deny that my embodiment, my body actually exists, or whether or not you're strictly in a Truman Show, or whether or not everything's a matrix and I'm just a digital artifact that you're living through, and you don't grant me over this because you're so busy assuming that I'm going to function within the moral code that you've said. And so the woman that was saying, you're saying, are you stating this from the perception of oneness? And I said, well, for every notion of oneness, there must be a mitosis of at least two-ness, meaning for every oneness, there's a binary that could be applied to it. Meaning the mere fact,
Right.
if we see we're oneness, and then I say, well, you're Rob, and I'll be dospook here, right? And so the idea of any difference, any conceivable line of difference, even in name or in structure and orientation or positioning, that automatically dissolves the notion of oneness and it pluralizes it. So I looked at things more in terms of a cosmic ecology of differences. Like over here we have the crabs, and over here we have the sharks, and over here we have the shellfish, and over here the tuna.
Well,
Here,
yeah,
everything's in this
I got
weird
you.
ocean of schoolings. But the idea of oneness is like, well, you're still in the waters, but then you got Batman shooting out of the clouds, you got fish jumping out of the ocean, you got beach whales, you got astronauts. I'm just trying to think of what.
Well, what I guess the only thing I would say to that is I would propose a relaxation in Western thinking and a synthesis of Eastern theory of mind with Western theory of science. So the individual doesn't have to be oppressed by the group. You know, I mean, we as social creatures, we already enforce shit on each other. Like if somebody's pointing a gun at you, somebody's going to try to knock it out of your hand because we protect each other. We're social creatures. That's how we operate. You know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is you are correct that identities and labels can have a function to at least stimulate a level of perspective, but any kind of dominance, hierarchy based bigotry should rightly be condemned because it's both abhorrent to the individual and the collective.
Well, then let me ask you this: Are you a vegetarian?
Yes. I
Are you?
just started eating. I'm trying to only eat rice and vegetables now.
Well, don't hurt yourself, but um, and don't not get what you don't want.
Oh, completely agree. Completely agree.
Right. It is a toughie, and you obviously why I brought the conversation there because of species to species hierarchy and or the notion of difference that is necessarily where the difference occurs is from the human to the other animal that scales down. Well, the chicken's just a dumb bird, and the fish is just dumb fish, and the cow's just mooing and eating its cud. Or, yeah. So, and then, even the joke, like, well, would you rather, not the joke, but the idea of, like, would you rather, sorry, I'm thinking like, it's not making sense. Meaning I can't remember what the topic is, but it's basically, would you rather uh, spend your time with a really, 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 really stupid human or a really, 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 really smart chimpanzee or something like that? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. You know, there are relevant distinctions in the sense that, you're going to plant a plant in dirt. You're not going to plant it in a wall. You know what I mean? I mean, and if you want to be artistic, if you want, yeah, I think that should be. I actually think prohibitions in society are fundamentally abhorrent to the agency of the individual.
Well, and so meaning you because you've been moving a lot of communal dialogue my way, of a lot of like oneness and wholeness and Eastern,
Right.
and a lot of that I do think is not only it's indicative of the time that we're in. It's indicative heavily of the coastal cities, the major coastal cities, as far as regions and aspects. When you go inland, I go up to Wyoming, very rugged, very parsed through. Like, hey, what do you guys think? Your neighbor, the Dakotas, they just had the Indians protesting the pipeline going under the whole document. They're saying, well, hey, there's already a pipeline going under the river. They didn't have a connection fit that they're having now, and so they said this is more a bunch of hype on their part, and that was their attitude, right? Which would be unheard of on a whole different angle, like hey, you guys are missing the whole point, even if that is the case. But I didn't. Like I try to embed myself in their position and see where distinction, because this is the whole idea. There's a mitosis, there's a two where there's a one, but not by necessity. There can just be oneness. But if you think about it hard enough and you find even the term diversity or die, any prefix that suggests difference, then you'll all of a sudden have difference, and then all of a sudden you can have a multitude of differences. And so there's really, to me,
That's
there's
right.
like a cloud of together oneness over here, and on the other side is a very discrete discrete outline of something on the other side, and that those two are in contra paradox, and that
Yes.
in communications and politics now are really fettering out what those differences are. Like, oh, well, Weinstein did this really nasty thing with all these women, and a lot of it didn't look like rape. It looked like power in, power words and power positioning, which, so it's not rape, it's not pedophilia, but it's still considered like in this, oh, the casting couch has always been around since movies have been around. There's the gatekeeper you have to work through. There's even women that go, oh, who do I have to blow to get this job, right? Like the joke of that, right? It's this whole notion of what does it mean to be caught in a previous culture that allowed and expected and people engaged, that those fish at those swam in those ways. And as the times evolve faster than the people can mutate out of them, now like Martin doing the King Tut thing. Oh, now it's misappropriation of a culture, even though like back then it was innovatively, I don't know, it was fabulous as far as I could tell, right? And so, like trying to look back upon an old eon and judge it as if you can embed yourself in that. It reminds me of William Burroughs saying, not to quote William Burroughs a lot, but he said, like, in order to feel something, you have to be something. He says, you can't feel 18, you're 72. You cannot be 18, And so he's going over this notion of you must be something to feel something, and kind of reduce everything to the ontologic being's fact, right? The ontic positioning of that being in its universe, and that's the totality of it. And yet, on the flip side, intellectually speaking, he can still say, I feel like an 18-year-old. I feel like I was then, because somehow the emotions or the embodiment or whatever it is, it makes sense to say it. But when you think of scalings of generations and times and pools and differences and histories, like if we really think we're solving everything, maybe we are. Maybe the internet does it. But I kind of think even the internet being parsed off, like we have the technology where you could be speaking Chinese and it should be able to translate for us, right? And yet it's not implemented. Like it's not commonplace. Like Yahoo France is not Yahoo. Yahoo Australia is not Yahoo. Like we got parsed off in like 2002 around the on router systems. But before 2002 on the internet, you would go onto a chat room and there'd be Chinese people chatting, and the same as anybody else. It was all this huge worldwide mix. And then it kind of got broken up, and then, so that the powers that be can maintain communication. And in a way, even the notion of inner city versus coastal cities and higher population cosmopolitan centers versus, more urban outback notions of clans and groups and stuff it's very peculiar to think about difference even within our nation, let alone world global differences in different regions or provinces and so forth. I mean, there's so much going on that to even reduce the idea to the idea that for us to have a conversation about what the future is almost like, instead of, oh, we have first world problems, no, these are first world idealisms. Just because we're embedded with Star Trek philosophy and equality doesn't, it's happening in the Congo or in Venezuela right now. It's not the concern on certain people's minds. And so it is weird to try to negotiate the idea of somebody thinking that whatever the scope of their mindscape is somehow encompasses 8 billion scopes. But that's not supposed to be like a show-stopping comment, though, either.
No, but it is the acknowledgement that linguistics ultimately is a self-referential binary that, for all intents and purposes, has led to this. Like we're all, like you said, we're all cordoned off. We're all, restricted access, and it's like, huh?
Well, and it's so weird because I was speaking with my roommate, who's a black fella, and he says, I said, hey, what do you think about the Bible? And the connotations within English, where dark is connotatively negative, and there's so many things like the black market is connotatively negative, where white knighting is also connotatively negative, but more knighting is generally positive, or white and delightsome versus the and so where I was trying to get to the connotative aspect, and he said, kind of rooted in the Bible, and he said, well, before Shakespeare, which is only a few hundred years old, he's like you're working with English's formation was kind of still just kind of coming together at the time. And basically he says, even pointing, because he holds some religious things, so I was just kind of pointing to the paradox of the root of the religion relative to the connotations that stem from language. And it made me think, that the notion of the historic formation of a lingual set is almost as incredible as a post-structural, or not post-structural, uh, a post-formation into the structuralization of language. Right, and the internet has standardized things more. Grammarly is that new program that's standardizing. This is what appropriate English is. And so I still think that there's variance, and should be variance in artistic forms of grammar structures, to kind of continue to reformulate or reposit true structures within different grammars. And so I don't necessarily, I agree with you. You got the lion's share of my agreement, is what I'll say. But I do think, you know, like as long as we're continuing the formalization of a language that already holds connotative negative values that overlay upon people's group identities, then people can point to living white heterosexual males as being the problem, when perhaps the problem is the embeddedness of the connotation within the language being used anyway. And then all of the historic use and non-uses of, black people get the N-word where white people don't because of this in the States, but in England it's forgivable, or in certain circumstances it moves this way. In terms of the racial disparity, the fettering out of gender identification and the allowance of saying, hey, my truth is inward for me, and therefore I will speak as if I don't fall within a binary category, but objectively you want me to check one of these two boxes. It is this weird like interplay, and like, oh, how is the law going to play, and then what are going to be the conflicts that it's almost like the laws are put in place to keep lawyers in business or something. I don't know. I'm over rambling maybe too much on that. But my thoughts were that the culprit was, to argue in the lion's share in terms of linguistics, but the culprit in a lot of cases just has to do with connotative language that's found historically in the formation of language. And that's why I like thought, post, deconstructionist thought, because it opens it up, but as it's kind of opens it up like letting water out of a dam into a riverbank, and the water's shooting outward right now, and it's going over the banks for good measure, and then it'll coalesce back into the river, and it will form however the river is going to go down. And then I think of cartography and like trying to, like, you draw the riverbeds as drainage, which is very natural moving, and then you draw the roads, which is very much a different sort of cartography overlay. It's a different layer of cartography. And so you might say, well, reason is like cartography for road systems, and the natural, like the left movement is more like drainage cartography, where the rationalist is more like road systems or something like that.
It's like we forgot how to speak the language of the forest.
Oh, that's why I'm drawing trees right now, so I can remember. But yeah,
I think you do remember.
yeah, it's weird, and yet I don't. I'm on the wagon as far as it comes to like smoking the wick and being part of the wicked because I smoke the green or I live amongst the campfire and
Yes, dude. So fucking funny, bro.
glad you're digging it. I like your interactions too, but it is funky getting sober. You know, it does, even that does change the mode mechanism, even though there's kind of a rewiring that's gone on. Like you, because you feel like you're dumbed down, or I did, like during the rewiring stage, and then it kind of comes about again. And then different things happen in the universe because, like you said, it's all one way. You know, it's effective in one way, but man, oh man, it's a rough road. I'm not being as indulgent as maybe I need to be. I feel like I'm some ascetic. Watch myself, like, and when I am with my vegetarianism, or if I've had enough and I just have to go get a drink or do something, then I hope I allow myself that. But sometimes I feel like Johnny Cash. I got to walk the line, but I don't. I'm doing it for myself, not a loved one. But the universe might be my loved one that I'm doing it for, but it might just be my own hide. I don't know. Who knows? It's so weird. I'm a babble fish, right? Douglas Adams babble fish. Except for I'm not translating. I'm just gooba gabbing.
Gooba Gabbin. Well,
Gabba.
so are you referring to the Tower of Babel?
Oh no, I no. Douglas Adams has a translation fish, which in it was, I think it was a 1984 or 86 book that he wrote called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and or maybe it was even before that. And what the translation device was, a little like a minnow fish that stick in your ear, and then the vibrations would translate the language through the fish so you could understand it.
Ah.
The fish.
So, and the reason that book was so genius was because it ultimately proved the redundant nature of asking so many questions.
Yeah. Well, there's not that the art of conversation is almost been formalized and structured to the. I go into debate rooms and try to this town
Oh
needs.
God, dude, I get banned from debates so fast, bro. They call me troll, troll, troll. I'm like, what the fuck? It's so fucking fun, bro.
Yeah, they I'm part of this great debate community, and the head guy that runs it, Mr. McCrae, he's an old scientist. He's a father of one. He's very, very, like, his knowledge base is very, very wide. He continues to widen it, and yet he also is aware that he isn't as crisp on his knowledges as he used to be. And yet there's kind of this general consensus within this structured group of PhDs and laymen and folks and just general people, anyone that wants to engage, that there is a formal definitions that are rigorous and they're current in terms of how they should be used. There is a huge should be aspect. And so I'm always in there trying to figure out a variance and a variability and a kind of I called it like in terms of truth, right? Like, because I'll argue against basic truth formation, and talk about it more like truth as modular, like a beaver dam is a module, like a different things are, if there's a gap in the reason in one area, some other lattice will connect the parts to maintain structural coherence of what's being said. But the rhetoric is generally that there has to be a type of agreed upon analysis of every single term and use of term, and only when the group decides that something is or isn't the case is it brought into the game. But that's kind of also within the community. Like they'll discuss nuances, but they've kind of, there's kind of still, kind of like with science, there's kind of a general model of what's considered appropriate peer-reviewed science, and then there's the fringe and the edges and the limits. I don't know. I'm babbling too much on that, but it is weird. It is weird. Groups of people are weird.
Yeah, I like to refer to it as toxic identity politics. So, I mean, if you want to identify yourself as like, I'm a magician, I'm a tree planter, I cut wood, I walk streets, and I yell poetry at people all day. I just walk the streets, smoke weed, drink, and I sing music, songs, tell stories, philosophy, debates. That's what my life is. And what you say is correct, because you say it's the imagination of downward pressure that I'm kind of trying to condense what you said, but you said the imagination of downward pressure is the linguistic limit.
Yeah, well, the epistemic limit, the linguistic limit, yeah, the linguistic limit includes the connotations, the historic connotations. I mean, the culprit, I say, is the historic connotations embedded in the language. Formalize, we make it formal, like wearing a uniform, right? We're uniformly formalizing and continue to seek out what appropriate grammar is. Then you're also embedding, you're kind of like, look, we buried the body under this road, right? Now the road has asphalt, now it has brick, now we're running another layer. Like you embedded the connotation within it. And so it's not seen, but it's still latent. There's a latent representation of it. And I think the latent representation of certain binaries, black and white, good and bad, up and down, this and that, right? That when the overlay of good or evil or good and wicked, or you start to make a bird's foot out of, you start to tripart things, and then so wicked and evil are different, but the light brown is not as bad as the dark brown, or to see one candle in the darkness, or see a black hole in space, or whatever the connotations are that have some sort of overlaying palimpsest sort of echo, that's what's coming up from underneath the ground. And yet the youth, they don't, just like every other human, they got to go through not got to go through, but they get through education, which formalizes the structure. Kind of like Bruce Lee, you have to the form, and then you move like liquid through the form, right? That's kind of his approach to his what was it called, Gojukai, or anyways, I forget what Bruce Lee's martial arts were, but yeah, downward pressure is an interesting way to phrase it. I don't know. See how I babble like that? I think I'm maintaining coherence without being.
Absolutely. You're one of the most coherent men I've ever had the pleasure of speaking with, and I'm thoroughly enjoying talking and listening with you.
Well, thanks. A lot of people would times or call me word salad. I get word salad. You're word salad, buddy.
People like to eat word salad. They think it means something.
Yeah. give you some tomatoes with my word salad. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know my own value in, like the marketplace of ideas, but I don't think postmodernists go far enough in their thinking, and I don't think they get strict enough when they're coming back, when they're bringing it back home. And I think the analytics are they're like the right wing archetypes. I think their formalization about what the case is merely
Right.
a type of laying a foundation. It's an accept. They just assume there's a foundation. So like Stefan Molyneux, right? He'll first argue distinctions in IQ amongst either race or sex or whatnot, or just populations. And then his foundation, then he'll just echo right back to the family. Well, the family unit is X, Y, and Z. And classically, these are the modes in which it must or should function. And it's not that I can't appreciate that kind of mode of thinking, meaning because, the family is interesting, but it doesn't cover cases, uh, the feral kids, like, oh, this person was raised by a wolf or a clan of deer or something like that. It's like, not that I've heard a clan of deer case, but it's the idea that there's, like, what do you say about their prospects of engagement within a culture and a society of increased population and everything that's gone through. Have you listened to Kate Tempest? Do you know that musician out of the UK?
No,
Young singer.
never heard of her.
Yeah, man. If you send me the link, I'll try to remember. I'll create a little list here. Like, okay, send Rob.
Maybe if you just write it on your blog or something, because I'm gonna go over to your blog or your Google Plus page or whatever the fuck you have.
The one blog is all business, right? I keep them separated, and then I got an art blog, like painting, but I don't put like my favorite musicians. Maybe I need to start doing that on Facebook. Like, really go, hey, I post about it, but
Hey, what do you think about this sentence? Fools on the beach, the sand is all bones. Watch where you go.
Sand is all bone. Well, I don't know why you give them a warning. Watch where you go, and maybe it's not a warning. Maybe it's just a watch where you go. And,
Maybe it's just like, hey, be aware that that's not just sand. Like, you're literally on top of a field of bones.
Yeah. You're walking on the graves of the ocean creatures. It's all scattered life bits. Like, don't enjoy your volleyball too much because you're jumping on the graves of dead shellfish.
That's fucking hilarious. It's like, oh, I can't go on the beach anymore. I hide in my house now because there's bones everywhere.
Well, and see, Kate,
maybe in a
great song called Europe.
What do you think in terms of like poetry communicating that message to like a low IQ person? Like, do you think they would? And I don't mean to use that in the phrase of saying, oh, IQ is this quantifiable thing and it's this and then it's that. But I'm just saying they're
like someone not do it, or
when you talk to some people, you can tell that they are a little more thorough in their awareness level.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just put it that way?
Yeah,
I fell into the IQ trap. Oh my god.
Well, my thoughts. I don't know. I have some, but my thoughts on like dismantling IQ, or that IQ is kind of a myth. Like to me that, and I like the idea of lion share, like the idea that IQ. Okay, here's a hypocrisy, right? IQ, according to like the Stefan Molyneux group, as opposed to, and I'm trying to think of this other guy that's on my favor of it, that speaks at TED Talks and so forth. He says, they say, well, you can't measure an individual person's IQ in this group. We can just say this group on averages lower than this group. And so what the irony or the funny part for me is that all of a sudden now, in order to speak about, it's almost like an odds game. Like, well, if you deal with whom we consider to be the lower group of IQ people, it doesn't mean you're saying that they're all that way, because some could be really smart and some could not. But the mere fact is that their argument itself now is about groups. And the one thing you'll hear, like Ben Shapiro and Stefan Mondor,
Oh God, Ben Shapiro is such a
is
creep.
the idea they're anti-group think, right? They're anti-communal notions of group identity is one thing that they're against, and yet the very root of their argument in intelligence tests requires that they analyze it in terms of groups. But anyway, that's all I'm saying. That's a criticism I have, because I sliding scale of hypocrisy.
No, wait, hold on. Whoa, hold on. I got something to say.
Go.
The way you can add to that idea so that people have a more thorough understanding is to say, well, look, we understand that this so-called IQ is deriving from resource benefits in early childhood. So if we can all just admit that, then everything is okay. Like I'll give you a really good example. Like today I went to the staffing company and I said, please give me a job. I need a fucking job. Like I'm fucking gonna die out here, dude. Like I can't afford this shit. You know? And they're like, all right, cool, fill out all this paperwork. And so I fucking filled all the paperwork out, and I could tell they were very tense at first. Like they were like, okay, I don't know who this motherfucker is. I don't know what fucking scam he's trying to run. But I was able to break the ice with them just by kind of being myself. And then I walked out into the room and I was signing a mutual arbitration form, which basically says labor can't do jack shit. Right. I mean, as long as the staffing company takes care of me, I'm not going to give a fuck.
Right.
But I went out into the room and I said, do you guys understand what this clause says here? And they thought I was trying to be a fucking dick to them. They took it offensively. And it was the reason they took it offensively was because how I said it. I said mutual arbitration. Do you guys know what that is? And then they were like, what the fuck? And I was like, okay, wait, hold on. Let me back up. I'm not trying to sound like I'm smarter than everybody here, okay? I really don't think that way. But are you guys aware of what the contents of this document are actually proposing?
Not the lawyer.
And they said, sir, if you don't know what it means, just sign the paperwork, okay? And I was like, okay. I said, okay, look, I do understand what it means. I was seeing if you guys understood. I'm sorry if I came at you guys kind of crazy. I'm going to go ahead and sit down and I'm going to sign this, okay? Thank you very much. Yeah. And guess what? The interaction was totally smooth. And it was because I checked my shit. You know, I wasn't going in there like, I'm a fucking lawyer and I can fucking piss on everything, motherfucker. Suck my dick, bitch. I'm a fucking lawyer. Come on. Prestige, motherfucker. Prestige of the law, bitch.
Well, did you get the job? Did you get a job yet, or are you still waiting, or what's going on with that?
No, somebody already called me while I'm talking to you, so of course I'm gonna get a job, dude. I'm not worried about that. I went into the 99-cent store and I just went to them. I was like, actually, you know what? Let me tell you this story because it's kind of beautiful. It kind of characterizes what we're talking about increasing morality. I hadn't shaved. I was fucking hungover as shit, high as fuck, long ass fucking hair, and you know, I'm not saying these things are individually bad, but I've clearly been neglecting my health. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And so I was just kind of trudging through the store very slowly, and then I walked up to a guy, and should I say what he was, or should I just not even identify him? Yeah, I'm not even going to identify any of his characteristics whatsoever. But he was of the male gender. I will leave it at that. And he was quite tall. And anyways, but I went up to this guy and I was like, "Do you know where the headphones are?" And he's like, "Excuse me, sir, can you please speak up?" And I was like, "Can you please tell me where the headphones are, sir?" And he told me where they were. Not only did he tell me where the headphones were, he walked up to the counter and he basically told me, "Dude, apply for this fucking job right now, motherfucker." In so many words, that's what he said. Okay.
Oh,
And I fucking picked up on what he was throwing at me, dude. And I literally started crying in the line at the grocery store because I was so touched that somebody noticed that I was suffering. And they didn't want to say, "Oh, well, he's a white boy. Who gives a fuck if white boy suffers?" You know? And a lot of people act like that. And it's fucking bullshit, man. But, it just blesses my heart that if you just chill the fuck out and treat people decently. I'll give you guys another example. Okay, Isaac Brock talks about this when he in his song "Karma Payment Plan." Okay, so I was driving. Okay, and
okay.
this cop like creeps on me, dude. Like in a really like obstructionary way. Like it was like jolted me. You know what I mean? Like he like drove up like in his SUV. Okay, I was driving. I was trying to turn left to leave Walmart, and this cop like got his SUV and he positioned it in an awkward way in traffic, and I got scared and I froze up. And he just fucking had his vehicle just sitting there, and he was just like staring at me. He didn't even know what I did wrong, or I didn't even know what was going on. I
Wow.
was just trying to drive.
Yeah.
And I just was driving very slowly, only 40 miles per hour. And this cop followed me for like a mile or like a half a mile, and then he pulls me over.
Oh, you got pulled over. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, what? But I just treated the cop nicely. He said when one of my taillights was out. I don't think he was honest. I haven't been pulled over since then.
Well, now
I said,
else this
I
idea.
said, "Sir, which taillight is out?" But I wasn't a dick to him.
Yeah.
I let him know. I was like, "Dude," I was like, "Hey, bro, I'm really hurting right now in my life, bro. Like, I don't have a job. I'm high all the time. I'm always drunk. I'm really upset. I'm having a hard time dealing with life, man."
Yeah.
And he just let me go without giving me a citation. He still couldn't drop his ego at the end because he still acted like he had a good reason to pull me over, which he fucking didn't.
Well, I was just going to throw this out, right? In terms of like psychic cosmic fields, right? Like, people say, "Hey, I can feel your energy. Like, I can see your aura," type of people, right? So if you grant that any credence, right, then just the mere fact that like the cops are like the sentinels that you're trying to stay away from. But I'm certain that at some time in your life, in your driving life, you've ripped by a cop and you've seen it and not reacted. You didn't flinch. You didn't even care. You just they were just another thing that just went by like a tree or anything else, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
And
how it is for me now.
other times you see a cop and they trigger they trigger you.
Yeah, exactly.
They come in your
That's
face,
right.
and then you tense, and then you ponder your relationship with them. And when you do that, you put
Yes,
you put out
exactly.
your
Like,
I'm an issue that maybe needs to be discovered. Like almost like,
yeah,
hey, I'm fishing for cops now, and I'm going to put out the cop fishing radar out of my like tentativeness. And if the cops see that you're tentative, like, oh, he's following too far behind, or he's moving slowly, and you're thinking about it, and they're like they got their wisdom. A lot of cops wear the mustaches, right? Like real far, not a lot of them, but some of them. That's the old thing, like cats whiskers to feel the wind, right? And so that's why they do it, is so they can sense. They can do their little senses, get their sense
yeah.
radar. Who's
Well,
suspicious?
it's true. It's true. It's true because I've been given so many breaks by police just by being nice to them. And
Yeah.
I think it was just like 2 days ago.
Uh,
I was walking out down the street listening to music like I fucking always do. I love it. It's fun. But seeing the cops like drive up really fast up
yeah.
into the 7-Eleven, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I want to go see what the fuck's going on. And my first thought was, oh, I want to make sure nobody gets shot. That was my first thought, right? Is the fear-based shit thought. And so, but anyways, I approached the store, and the two, and this is a store I pretty much go to. I'm a regular there. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
And like I talk to the people and shit. And so, anyways, the two gentlemen that worked there and the two police officers were standing on the storefront describing the situation. And so I approached them, but
Wait.
I maintained my distance. And one cop looked at me and he said, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, I frequent the store. I'm a regular. I really love these guys right here, and I actually just kind of want to hear like what actually transpired, what events actually occurred here." And
Well,
then they were like, "Oh, okay," and they just let me chill out there and listen. And then at the end of it, I gave them both hugs, and I was like, "All right." Like, they didn't want to hug me. They're like, "Ew, get the fuck away from me." But I was just like, you know what? I really don't give a fuck. I'm gonna transmit this love to you, whether you like it or not. I know. Even that is. They say, they say that the Zen is to not put the block in front of another. I completely agree with that. You know, those men have already probably attained the way, and I was just a pest to them. You know, I don't deny that or decline to accept that as reality. You know, I understand my station. I know my place. You
well,
know, I know I must earn what I must earn my keep. And you know what? You brought up capital earlier, which I is probably another one of my favorite subjects. So we have this idea of capitalizing things and people, you know,
yeah.
but we don't really the idea of social capital seems to be lost on people. And what I mean is this. Um, you know, for all the people that get lambasted as, oh, he's just a fucking way out in the fucking head. He's tripping in his own mind. He's thinking about reptilians and all this shit. He's thinking of something that's fucking, you know, not this other weird shit that you guys think about, you know, like any type of fear-based consciousness in my opinion is just folly. It's complete folly. Because, you know, I listened to one of these Buddhist monks talking, and I love listening to those guys. Some of them have good insights, some of them I feel are a little blocked, I guess. But one of them put it this way: the greatest gift that you can give to the world is to just be yourself and be content. Hence, you would have realized the Dharma and the Zen and the Buddha, and you can allow others to realize at their own pace. You know, so that's why the cop was cringing when I hugged him, which was a good cringe because it told me like, hey, like there's this contact that you're giving me. I'm not going to deflect it, but I'm going to send you a signal that it's unsavory. It's making you look bad. You know, it's making this situation look bad. It's not bringing anything good here.
Well, but you're
So
not.
you can't force love.
Did you think that your hug was forcing love, or did you think their negation of not wanting your hug or thinking it was uncouth or whatever was the non-loving part? Or meaning, you said you think that they had the way already, like they've already become, and but you're gonna hug them anyway because it's there. But did you think, I don't know, like well, and it's interesting that you kind of threw up, capital and then social capital. And
Yeah.
it is weird because the formations, like police, are generally they're required to be sober. Like a lot of occupations are required to have certain senses of sobriety to them.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, they have to be able to engage with people that are sober and non-sober and different types and styles and cultures of people. So
Right. That's
and yet
correct.
they have their own limits too. Like, hey, this is outside of our bounds. But it sounds like like they also they probably recognize you as like, hey, this guy, he matches this kind of, like, you're very emotional and you're saying, you disclose a lot, and they're probably like sizing you up like, well, we're not going to worry about you as being some Jeffrey Dahmer mass murderer killer. You're not putting off that air to them, so you're
Yeah.
not, you know, getting their
Yeah,
whiskers.
it's like when you were talking about it earlier with the cat's whiskers. That was such a brilliant way to put it. Because dogs, when dogs are walking around, they're not thinking about all this fucking shit that people are thinking about. So they're just being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and that's why they can just be content and just lay around and be like, fuck it. But humans have seemed to have forgotten that we're animals.
Well, and it's so weird because if you're, if you get to a certain state, you might actually feel like you are merely an embodied robot, kind of like the iRobot character Will Smith, and kind of,
Yeah, the
kind
whole determinism, the
of, and
determinism, right?
what's that? Determinism?
Determinism.
No, well, not so much determinism, like you're not getting from where you are to your telos or the end in a determined way. What I'm saying is more like you can actually view yourself as kind of like a biological machine, like the
Ah,
Stanford physicist. He says we don't live in a pixelated world; we live in a voxelated world. And a voxel is a 3D pixel. We are our biological electronic bits, so we are not programs. We are also programs, and that the program extends beyond us. You are yourself your own avatar in a way, functioning within a program where every single aspect of, every step you take, every move you make, everything you do has some butterflying reiterative karmic effect to it that
mm,
plays out in the next moment. Your next moment is necessarily the perfect, whether it's painful or suffering or not, it's still the moment that fits your future needs. Meaning it's almost like you're within a manifold, right? And it's a digital manifold. Almost the difference between analog and digital, right? And that discussion comes up too, where, historically, hey, we're still animals, but then if you watch like the movie The Matrix, then the cat being an animal is reiterated twice, indicating the glitch. And so it indicates that the cat itself might just be a program, like Neo might just be a program that's singular fighting the Smith program, which pluralizes itself, type of thing. But nevertheless, it's this idea that every organism, like you might have watched The Matrix and thought, well, Trinity and Neo, these two are both the humans. Like anyone that's in Zion, they're the human organism. But when I keep reconsidering the movie, like reapproaching it and reconsidering, I'm thinking, well, perhaps they're biological, so they're animals in that regard, but it doesn't mean that they're not also programmed biological voxels that are part of, like, you are a robot, you are the Blade Runner, you are the thing, you are you are a digital placement in a digital world, not an analog that looks like an analogic placement in an analogic world, something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm steering it too much, but what I'm saying is that uh, well, it's an interesting thought, but it's not so much about destiny. It's about acknowledging maybe your placement within everything. But like you and I, this discussion, right? My choosing to draw in my drawing, which is keeping me away from certain strict business things, is actually not only maybe helping business things, but it's helping kind of an organic, like you said, of the woods, of the wick, of the play. It kind of reduces me back into my human monster or beast mode. It's like grounding me, like I'm an earth sign instead of a fire air sign all of a sudden, right? I don't know what to say about it. I'm just trying to like use a series, a peel of a series of word complexes that I can, like, give you to put down your throat, your psychic throat there, so to speak, and then maybe it will manifest into some new thought patterning. But you do the same thing, just you help me reiterate, or not reiterate, but rethink. Like your emotional set is very surprising to me. Like you're highly much more emotional, um, than I have been, or you express it in a more, I don't know. It's
Well, it's because of who my father was.
yeah.
My father, he did, obviously everybody has shortcomings. Nobody's perfect. But my father is really fucking smart.
Mhm.
And he's like the guy that likes to fuck around in the garage. You know what I mean? Like he likes to go in the garage and just like fuck around with shit. Like whether it be like a motorcycle or like a fucking gear, or he likes to tinker with shit and he likes to look at shit.
Right.
And when I was a kid, my dad gave me space. And he just said, "What do you want, son?" And he just gave me whatever I wanted.
Uh,
And I what I wanted was books.
oh,
I always loved books and video games.
uh-huh.
The reason I'm obsessed with video games is because, and my obsession is actually waning. I'm not actually interested in playing video games anymore. But the reason I liked playing video games was because like you said earlier in this conversation, I felt like I had to solve a puzzle. And I felt like I was exercising a part of my brain that would make it easier for me to see dislocated patterns.
Well, and so, but now I just interpreted that you found me as a dislocated pattern, which I take as a compliment. Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much. But anyway,
Well,
no,
and
go
that's
ahead.
that's the whole point. The patternization of the individual, like you said, creates this analog illusion that self-perpetuates due to the interconnected nature of literally everything. The way I put it is some people look at a surveillance camera and they get scared. And it's like, well,
Right.
wait, you don't think your actions already have consequences, whether somebody's looking or not? And you don't think there's always somebody like in some window watching you? Like, no matter where the fuck you are, there's most likely going to be eyes or ears somewhere nearby. You know what I mean? So, this idea of this alienation is the problem.
Mm, yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, it not only within your public actual like phonic realm and your visual realm or your vibration, like physical reactive vibration, where like, because I live in a multi-unit place, so if someone down like 4 units falls down or drops something, I'll feel the vibe, even if I can't hear them. But and then roommates, I hear them, they hear me. Different things happen. But then when you think about like camera recordings, like I got to the point where, as part of a spiritual journey, you imagine that every single molecule can see out or see anything inside and outside of your body, that other entities can see out of your eyes as the same time that you're seeing out of them,
Mm.
that
Oh, wow.
everything is completely transparent. Every molecule has an eyeball, has a camera on it, meaning that the idea of any sort of grease in your pits or around you, that's all known. It's all there. Hence, clean it, floss, prepare, get ready, move faster, move this way, move that, like architect. It's or not, or relax. Go eat meat, go have some kids, go.
Fuck.
Another series of like choice life things that certain people have and other people don't have. But it is weird to talk about the idea of surveillance and effect. But when you brought up earlier, you said hyper, it's like the hyper individual, right? And then I kept thinking of the individual squared. And so when you bring up, hey, don't you think that everything is known, then I try to square that idea and talk about every molecule having an eyeball then, and every thought being known, and everything being known in the thoughts.
Well,
Hyperizing.
it's true though. No, it's actually true because like okay, I have roommates and I have neighbors nearby and we have our windows open and You know, you can keep the doors unlocked, you know, and we know what the fuck is going on. You know, nobody's fucking stupid. You know, where there's people all over the fucking place, dude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like living in communities like this, because there's an openness and people are just fucking honest with each other, and they reward honesty. They reward it big time. Like when I was going into these job places, I was speaking with mainly women, and I would tell them straight up what was going on. Straight up. This is what they're doing. This is how they're doing it. This is it's a fucking scam. It's a legal gray area. That's how they justify it. I literally sat there for 20 minutes and I explained the whole fucking thing to these two ladies. And then I went to another place and applied, and I explained to that lady the same thing. And guess what? These women were all ears. They wanted to hear it. You know why? Because it's the whatever you call the matriarchy. It's them communicating with each other, trying to keep things safe while people are going fucking haywire. That's what it is. You know, and the way I know that is because I can go in as a drunken brawler into the weed shop and fucking flirt with girls, you know, and kind of be a little too aggressive, to be honest. But they ultimately forgive me. And why do they forgive me? Totally fucking honest with them. 100%. Like I say, oh, I'm sorry I fucking hate on you last night. I was drunk. They go, oh, no problem. Don't worry about it. And it's over. It's like not even a thing anymore.
Until 30 years down the line, and they're like, boy, John whipped his dick out like Harvey Weinstein did 20 years.
Yeah, that's why I got to be careful. You know, I have a way that I talk to women. It's kind of funny, to be honest. I just say right off the bat, okay, if it's a white female, I say, are you a feminist? And her answer reveals a lot. If she gives me an answer like you would say, like, hey, look, deconstructionism ultimately leads to ultimate deconstruction. So any kind of identity politics is toxic. So if you're sitting there worrying about climate change, worried about fucking women's rights and the patriarchy and whatever the fuck you're doing, like, no, we are not compatible. But you know what? There's this other girl there that's named Courtney, and she flirts with me, and I'm very straight up with her. Like she tells me, she's like, hey, I would like to smoke a blunt with you sometime. Like she straight up told me that. And we have a way of communicating with each other that's like the way me and you are talking.
You want me to
We
tell you why Courtney's that way?
what?
I'll give you an example. I'll tell you why Courtney's open to it, right? Because she feels like you're courting her, not like you're taking her to court. She likes your communication style. What's in a name?